If you found this podcast, chances are you're a high achiever and you're successful. But now you're stuck and stressed, and you realize that everything you've created hasn't given you the fulfillment and the joy you thought it would. This is where we discuss the keys of high performance mindset and stepping into the next best version of yourself. Welcome to the Positive Persistence Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Positive Persistence Podcast, where we bring you stories to inspire you and strategies to help tap into your potential and become your best self. We're joined today by a sought-after social media coach whose expertise in building authentic, high-impact networks and using social media as a powerful sales tool has transformed countless lives and businesses. Jordan Mendoza, welcome to the show.
Hey, appreciate you having me, Ian. Looking forward to just hanging, having some good conversation, and hopefully adding value to your audience. That's my only goal when I come on a podcast, is I want to add value, not take it away. I know that everyone's time is valuable, and as long as I can give some good context, some good stories, some good tips, then I'm all about it. If not, delete it.
I am more than confident that we will not be deleting this one at all, and our viewers and listeners are going to get a lot of value out of this conversation. So I just want to touch on this and kind of jump in. So Jordan, not only are you a sales and social media coach, but you also host a top-rated Blaze Your Own Trail podcast. We were kind of talking about before we hopped on here that you've been doing for 5.5 years, and it's awesome. And now you also have your new book coming out.
Yes.
The Life-Changing Power of Adversity.
Yes.
And on top of all of that, you're a father of 6.
That's it. Yeah.
So you got a lot of things going on. I mean, a lot of hats you are wearing.
Yeah. And you forgot I'm a co-founder of a Belgian-based tech startup, and I own another company in the Philippines, and I'm a equity partner in about 5 other ventures and a startup advisor. So yeah, it's one of those things where you can either have excuses or you can have results. And when I talk to a lot of my clients and a lot of my coaching students, and they tell me about the thing that they want to create or the couple things, and I'd say, hey, you can 1,000% do it. Because if a knucklehead like me that grew up super poor, barely made it out of high school, no college experience can do it, then anybody can do it. And so I like to share that it doesn't matter where you're from, it doesn't matter your background. What matters is your willingness to keep going. And we talked a little bit about that in the beginning, is you have to be willing to not give up. Because that's how you reach success. Because success is not something that's going to happen overnight. I think I shared, my show did 30 downloads a month when we first started, and now we're crossing close to 160,000 a month. But again, that didn't happen because I just decided to release a few episodes and then just wait and see what happened. No, it happened because of the consistent pursuit of wanting to get better, of wanting to invest time and energy and effort, and watching how other people did it and saying, how can I blaze my own trail? How can I take what I've learned and what I'm seeing from some of the top producers and use my own God-given talents, gifts, and abilities to do it my way? And that's why, you see my hat. A lot of people are like, what's wrong with your hat, bro? Why is it upside down and backwards? Because the trailblazers are different. We don't do things normal. We go against the status quo. And I believe that everyone can blaze a trail. You just have to be willing to step into the fire. You got to be willing to step off the path a little bit and do things a little bit unconventionally.
Which can be very scary. Right. And I think that people sometimes lack that confidence, self-confidence specifically, to think that, number one, that they can do it.
Yeah.
And number two, well, how do I do it? Right.
100%.
I think a lot of that stems from your ability to handle adversity. And that's something that I want to talk to you about today, because I know that you have had adversity in your life, and it even goes back another generation. And I've heard you talk about your mom and the adversity that she faced. So I don't want to take any words out of your mouth, but I was hoping you could kind of share that with our audience.
Yeah, we got to get down to the origin story. I think it's super important for people to have that context, And so I grew up, and, my mom was actually born in the 50s, 1958. And when she was born, the doctors essentially told my grandmother, they said, hey, she's not going to live to 18. And she's not going to be able to have any kids. She was born with one lung in the 50s. And the technology wasn't great at the time, so they basically just kind of wrote her life off and was like, yep, this is here's the hand she was dealt. And,
Yeah.
my mom had other plans, though. She was a fighter. She ended up having 5 boys and living to 54 years old. So she took the jokers that she got and she literally turned it into a full house, literally and figuratively.
Right.
And
Yeah.
she was the strongest woman that I knew. She had a great personality, great charisma, great sense of humor, and she never looked at her circumstances and played the victim card. She was always a victor, and she figured out, even though we grew up really poor, food stamps, government housing, secondhand clothes, got made fun of all the time, where wore a lot of the same costumes again every year because we just didn't have the money. But
Yeah.
what that showed me was that I could also be resilient, that I could also keep a positive attitude. And when you have somebody that maintains that your life, no matter what the circumstances are, they show you that there's another lens that you can look through, and they believe in you, and they tell you over and over again that you can do anything you set your mind to. You get it honestly, and so that's what was my mom. And even though I saw her almost die multiple times as I was a kid, she eventually had to start using oxygen, and I would help her with those oxygen tanks. I mean, I took a big responsibility in that, but she just was so resilient that honestly, it took her passing, Ian, to realize that I actually went through some crap myself because I
Yeah.
looked at her situation and I said, man, like, there's no way I will ever go through anything that she went through. And I was literally blind to the fact that all of these things happened to me until she was gone, and I had to like look back at my childhood and look back at all the things that I have overcome and say, wow, like I've been through some stuff. And I'd love to share with your audience some of those stories as we have this conversation. But of course, I want to
Yeah.
let you kind of take the wheel and go back. But that was mom. And then let's add a wrench to the mix. So didn't have a great father figure. My stepdad was an alcoholic. He was abusive, in and out of jail. Threw a can at my mom one time when I was a kid and cut her head open, and got arrested for that. And we eventually moved to try to escape this tumultuous relationship that they were in.
Yeah.
Didn't meet my real dad till I was 12 years old. He's a Filipino immigrant. He jumped ship in the 80s to get a slice of the American dream. Got a job at the landscaping company, eventually started his own. And I'm proud to say that he just retired after 40 years of building a landscaping business. And our relationship now over the last 25 years has been mended. It's been reconciled. And also, I'm proud to say that my stepdad he's still alive. We still communicate, and he's been sober for over 30 years. And so I'm here to
That's
tell
great.
you, folks, just because people are a certain way in their past, it doesn't mean that they can't change in the future. But we
Mhm.
have to be open and willing to let them go through the process, let them go through the changes. We can't do it for them. Change is something that comes from within. We have to
Absolutely.
want to change. And for
Right.
me, all the positive changes I've seen in my life comes from my heavenly Father, Jesus Christ, and I don't get any strength on my own accord. I've tried it; it doesn't work. So I have to tap into something that's greater than me, the Creator that created me and created it all. That's where I get my strength and my hope from. And so when people say, "Man, how did you get through this?" I'm like, "God, there's no way I could do it in my own power. There's no possible way I could go through some of the stories that you're going to hear today. I've had protection, I've had redirection, I've had reconciliation, I've had redemption, and none of that comes through my own strength." And so I just want to make that very clear that there's nothing special about me. The only thing that's special is I was created by a creator, and he doesn't make mistakes, and he does all things for good. And it says in the Bible that you should consider all things joy, even things that are hard, consider it joy. Because there's always a plan and a purpose, and everyone was created for a specific plan and purpose. And I believe that mine is inspiring, encouraging, and motivating people and showing them what's possible. I've gone through all the things that I've gone through to this point, and all the things I'm going to go through until the day that I get buried in the ground, for a purpose and for a reason. And I believe that that's the same for everyone that's going to listen to this episode or watch this. You just have to figure out what that purpose is. And that's taken me a very long time to do. I was like, is my purpose just to go through the fire? Is my purpose to go through injuries? No, that's not what it was for, but it has helped shape and mold me to be the person that I am today. And I'm grateful
Right.
for it.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful, Jordan, and such an important message, that it depends on how you look at adversity sometimes, right? It
100%.
depends on what lens you choose, because it's always your choice
Yep.
what lens you choose to look through. And you can take the woe is me lens and why is this happening to me lenses, I'm never going to succeed lens, and say that this challenge is too hard and why do bad things always happen to me? Or you can be looking at it as I am going through the fire for a reason. And I truly believe that I can learn from this. Now, in the moment, you might not be thinking that way,
No, not
right?
at all.
But
Yeah.
in the future, when you look back and you realize that you were able to forge some mental fortitude or create a new skill or improve your emotional resilience, that those tiny moments in life that may seem like they are forever, they really strengthen you. They actually
That's
add
it.
to your resolve. And then when you're able to add that to your identity, I think that changes you as a person because you then begin to realize how strong that you really are.
Yeah,
But I want to I
100%.
want to circle back to this, but I want to go back to something that you talked about. And it's in terms of identity, because I've heard you talk about this before, is that, and going back to your dad, that you didn't meet him till you were 12 years old, and your mom shipped you off, put you on a plane to go meet your dad, and when you stepped off the plane, your identity immediately shifted
That's it.
because
Yeah.
you didn't realize that you were Filipino.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I grew up with a white mom, blonde hair, green eyes, and I mean, we were like you know, a after you look back, right? They say hindsight's 2020.
Yeah,
Once you look back, you can see a lot more clear. And I look back, and my older brother's dad was black. I have three other brothers. Their dad's from Palau, and so we probably look like look like a bunch of foster kids running around Portland, Oregon, with a white mom. And I didn't notice that. I didn't notice that
yeah,
as a kid until I got off that plane, flying from Portland to Minneapolis, St. Paul to Washington National, and I get off and there's a bunch of Asian people in front of me, and I'm like, okay, wow, like this is family, right? This is my heritage, and I got to meet
yeah,
my grandpa and my grandmother, and I got to learn about Filipino culture and food, and man, it was a very strange summer because that's the first time I stepped foot in a body of water that was warm, because I grew up in the Pacific Northwest and everything was cold. You have the Pacific
yeah,
Ocean, you have all the lakes and the rivers, and you could drink that water 24 hours, 365. And here I am, and I go to Virginia Beach and I step foot in the ocean, and it felt so strange because the water was warm. It almost felt like a bath, and
right,
so things like that. There was a lot of culture shock, not just culture from the heritage that I was a part of, but just getting to experience things that I never got to experience. I didn't go to theme parks as a kid, and I got to go to, King's Dominion in Virginia. I didn't get to go to like really nice restaurants, and so I was almost living a double life. Every summer I would go and be with a middle class family and get to do all these fun things while my brothers are at home and living poor, right? So it was very interesting, to kind of live out those two separate lives. And then one summer my mom said, hey, do you want to go to the Philippines? I'm like, yeah, when we're going. And she's like, no, you're going. And so I ended up going at 16 to the Philippines for 3 months on my own. And man,
wow,
that was a trip that literally changed my life, because
yeah,
what I realized, Ian, is that although on paper and to the naked eye, we were poor in Oregon, we
mhm,
were very rich because we had running water. We
yeah,
had plenty of food on the table, even if it was provided by the government. And man, I was in the Philippines pumping my own water, chasing around chickens, like climbing trees to get our fruit. Like, it was a whole different life. And that's when I realized is that we truly were rich. We had love, we had family, but for
mhm,
some reason in the Western society, we don't look at it like that. We're so caught up in our circumstance and in that environment that we don't realize how much we truly have. And so
yeah,
that trip at 16 was so life changing. I was able to pick up two Filipino dialects, Ilocano and the national language Tagalog. I was able to, journal every day and just learn and just live life without worrying about stuff. Everybody there, the strangest thing was no matter how little they had or how much they had, everybody was happy. And it's something that has really stuck with me, and I think that's where I get my unwavering optimism from. Now, does that mean that I don't have bad days? Absolutely not. Everybody has bad days, but I'm always trying to look for the silver lining in a day. I mean, my day today, it started off really bad. I came out and my battery was dead, and I'm not a handyman or a car guy, and I had to figure this stuff out. And then it was like, and call a place and I can't get into my Marriott membership and they say it's frozen. I'm trying to book a hotel in Cleveland to go to on to. I mean, there's a lot of things that could happen, and I could either, dwell and be in my sorrows, or I can say, you know what, I need to pray about this. Let me reset. The enemy's not taking me down today. I got a podcast to go on to go encourage and inspire and motivate some people, and I got to pull myself back together. And that's the difference between someone that's resilient and that can look at the silver lining in situations, and someone that just says, you know what, I'm just going to have a bad day and I'm going to stay in my sorrows and I'm going to just be frustrated the rest of the day. But again, like we said earlier, Ian, and all the listeners, it's all about our choice. Okay. A mindset it's the inner game controls the outer game. Okay.
Yes.
And once we can actually realize that life is 90% mental and 10% physical, that's when the game starts to change. And I say game because I gamify everything. And that's one of the reasons why I've been successful in sales is you have to play a game with yourself, because if you make it all hard work, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard if you look at it that way. But if you look at it like, hey, this is the game, let me figure out how to play a game today and gamify my world, then it makes it a lot easier. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it makes it a lot easier, and it takes the pressure off of us and turns it into something more fun. And that's actually why I got a download to write a new book called Have Fun, Make Money, because most people do it the opposite. They try to make money and then have fun. And it takes a lot longer, it's a lot harder, and it takes a lot more effort.
Yeah, I think most of us feel like we have to make money so we can have fun.
Yeah, that's it.
Right? Myself included. I've always been in that mix. Like, right, if I want to be able to do the things that I enjoy doing, I got to make some money so I can do it. So
Yeah.
I love that, the twist, the flip it. So I'll be interested to hear more.
It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one, because I feel like I can play all day long. And if I don't, that's when I start to go downhill. So it'll be an interesting read. I'll definitely be sending you a copy once it's done, for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. Appreciate that. Well, I want to go back to something that you said, because I've heard you say it before, and it's not letting your circumstances define you.
Yeah.
And you talked about it already a little bit, but I would love to unpack that a little bit more through your eyes in terms of some of the circumstances that you have been in personally that you didn't let define you, and how you were able to, kind of rage against the machine, if you will, and not let that change who you were.
Yeah. So, one of the early things that happened, I just watched the movie My Girl, and I'm dating myself now because that came out back in the 80s. But, this is a movie with Macaulay Culkin, one of his first films, and he ends up getting stung by a bunch of bees and dying. And I remember I was in 4th grade when that movie came out, and I was at this park in Portland called Pier Park. And I don't know why to this day, Ian, we had a picnic to celebrate 4th grade graduation, because we were going to 5th grade. It wasn't like, elementary school was over, but we had this big picnic at the park. And this is back when tetherball was legal. So this is, again, dating myself here. There was tetherball at the park.
Illegal now?
It's illegal, man. I don't know if it's because kids are going to get strangled by the cord, or it's just too bloody of a game. I don't know, but tetherball was pretty ruthless back then. But yeah, so it's illegal. I think in most schools they took down all the poles now, and you might have a pole with no chain. Yeah, it was great. So there was tetherball at the park, frisbee, baseball, all different kinds of activities happening. And I decided that I was going to play baseball that day, and so I grabbed the bat, and I'm up to bat, and I swung it, and I spun around in a circle because I was pretty terrible at baseball, and the bat flew under this big Douglas fir tree. And so naturally I run over, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go get this bat. When I grabbed the bat, I stood up, and there was a beehive on my head. And so I'm literally getting stung immediately. I'm running, and kids are running away from me. The bees are chasing me. Teachers start running away. And then finally, some of the good teachers, they grab these big coolers and they dump them all over me, and they start pulling bees off of me. And I got stung 53 times in 4th grade. So you can imagine, I was like, I'm gonna die. Just watch Macaulay Culkin just died. I'm about to die. And of course I survived, and that showed me that I had some tenacity, and thank God I wasn't allergic to bees, or we wouldn't be on this podcast episode.
Right.
But that was an early situation where I got to see how people react and respond in chaos. Because again, there were kids running away, the teachers were running away, and then there were some people that probably had a more servant's heart and said, "Hey, we need to help this kid out," and they ended
Yeah.
up pouring these coolers on, and I'm sure it mitigated some more stings, because that could have definitely been deadly. I don't know how many stings it takes to take a kid down, but
Yeah.
53 is what we counted at the doctor's office. Once we went there, and I had a lot
Yeah.
of Benadryl and stuff like that, but it was interesting because afterwards I thought I was the bee man. I would actually go around and just pick up bees and let them walk on my hands. I thought I was immune, Ian, but it
Right.
wasn't true, because a couple weeks later I got stung by a yellow jacket, and I was like, all right, I got to stop this bee man business. But that
Right.
was an early adversity moment that happened at an
Mhm.
early age that just kind of showed me how people react and respond. And a second one happened when I was 12. We had, I told you, my stepdad was pretty tumultuous back then, always in and out of jail, drunk all the time. And so one day, like our neighbors helped us literally pack up a U-Haul truck, and we moved 2 towns away. We're trying to get away, trying to create a better life for our family. And so that meant that, I begged my mom. I said, listen, I want to still go to the same middle school. Like, these are my friends. I've known these, even though we moved 14 times from
Yeah.
birth to 14, for that first, up to sixth grade, like, these are all my same friends. And so I begged my mom, like, please keep me in this same school, at least for this one year. And so she did, and she agreed to take me on the TriMet bus, which is the public transportation in Portland, Oregon. And I had to take one bus that stopped at a 7-Eleven convenience store. And then from there, I would wait till my next bus came, and I would take that next bus, and it would literally stop on the street of my middle school. And so one day I was in the 7-Eleven just playing Mortal Kombat 2 like I did while I was waiting for my bus,
Yeah.
and the bells chime like someone walked in, and I heard a
Mhm.
man's voice yell, "Hey, Daniel." And I'm Jordan, so I just kept playing the game just like I did. And within about a minute, Ian, I was lifted in the air. I was thrown against the Terminator 2 pinball machine that had a gun as a trigger. My
Yeah.
ribs went into that. I was punched several times, thrown on the ground, handcuffed, and tossed into a police car. And this was an act of a couple different things that were terrible. So they
Yeah.
racially profiled me as a Hispanic runaway, which my dad's from the Philippines. I'm not even Hispanic.
Right.
Two, they thought I was I had assaulted somebody. I was literally maybe 5 foot something, I don't know, and skinny and couldn't hurt a fly, And the other thing is the lady actually knew me because my mom introduced me to her on these routes that she took. And so she was like, "Hey, I know his mom. He's in here every day." And they yelled at her, cussed at her, and said, "Hey, you say another word, we'll arrest you too." And so they were just all kinds of out of line in a lot of different ways. And my
Right.
only saving grace is that I remember my mom was on me the night before. I wasn't a great student. I was not a great student at all. But I went into confession mode. I was like, "Sir, please, like, look in my jacket pocket." I had this London Fog jacket on, and I said, "If you look in my pocket, you will find my homework, and it says my name, which is Jordan Mendoza." And man, he like unlocked that door in the back. He reaches in that pocket, he grabs up my crumpled, that's how I rolled, crumpled piece of homework paper. It
Yeah.
said Jordan Mendoza, man, and it looked like he saw a ghost. Like, he turned pure white. He was already white, but he turned even more white. And that's when he knew he screwed up. He
Yeah.
called my mom. My mom's like, he told him there was a misunderstanding, and she's like, "Well, why is my son like crying hysterically? Like, what kind of misunderstanding?" He's like, "Oh, we thought he was somebody else, and we're gonna go drop him off at school," and which they did. And I went, of course, directly to the counselor's office, and man, I was a victim of racial profiling and police brutality. And
Yeah.
this was in the early '90s. So Rodney King had just happened, not too. So there was a lot of tumultuosity, if that's even a word. There was a lot of things that were happening with police at that time. And so I
Mhm.
don't know if they were on high alert. I still to this day don't know what was going on through their minds. Like, what were they dealing with? But here's the thing that I knew. I had already seen my mom suffer, with all her ailments, her injuries, almost dying. I saw my grandmother like get dementia and eventually die from cancer. And so I had this thing called empathy, and I had something in me called compassion. So for me, I knew that they did not deserve jobs in law enforcement, and I wanted them to essentially get fired and and I wanted to move on. And I remember my mom, brother, like she wanted a payday. We were poor, and she was looking to get this payday. And they had me see psychologists, and they were showing me all these pictures. They're like, "Do you see a police officer?" I was like, "I see a weird bird." Like, no, I was not affected by it, like psychologically. And
Yeah.
so what ended up happening was they ended up losing their jobs, and I ended up just moving on, and there was no payday. Again, it's not what I wanted, even though it would have probably bettered our life. It probably would have made the situation better. But there was something inside of me that knew that that wasn't the right thing to do, even at 12 years old. And I took away a lot of lessons, which is everybody makes mistakes. Doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a lawyer, a police officer. People are going to have bad days, and I don't know what was happening in their world, but I knew that that wasn't right, and they didn't need to have a job with that type of responsibility. And I wanted to just move on with my life.
It's time to ask yourself, when was the last time you prioritized you? Did you know that research shows that nearly 85% of high performers struggle to maintain a performance mindset while juggling the demands of work and personal life? Those who actively prioritize their performance mindset and personal growth are 30% more likely to achieve their goals in business and life. If you're feeling crippling stress and anxiety, or if you're feeling guilty when you take a moment for yourself, or if you're stuck in the grind and feeling burnt out, you're not alone. Many of us yearn for more, but struggle with the fear of being judged or feeling selfish. And you want to step into the next best version of yourself. That's why I created the Rinse Method, which got me from paraplegic to marathon runner. Backed by science-based proven strategies and now customized for high performers like you. If you're stuck and stressed and want clear steps that you can implement today to move forward, make sure you visit thepositivepersistence.com to download our free Rinse PDF. Yeah. Wow, that is very big of you, Jordan. I mean, even at that young age, because I know I would have been pissed and I would have been full of anger and I would have wanted someone to pay for that. So that is the fact that you had that compassion and that empathy at such a young age says a lot about the circumstances that you had to deal with and how that forged the person that you become and you were becoming at that age. So I applaud you for that, man. That's impressive.
Yeah, again, I found Christ at probably 9 years old, so there was already something inside me, that was bigger than me, that allowed me to leverage this thing called discernment, this wisdom that was beyond the time that I had been on this planet, and when you can tap into that and couple it with empathy and compassion, then I think we make decisions that most people don't understand. Because even to this day, when I look back, it's like, why did I think that way? Like, what made me? And I can only bring it back to, having an encounter with God, and Him placing and depositing, the Holy Spirit in me, and helping me throughout these situations and making the right decisions. Because again, was not of my own volition. I'm sure in the natural as a human, I'm sure if I wouldn't have had that, I probably would have been just like you said. I probably would have been bitter and angry and dead broker in jail by now, right? I mean, there's a lot of things I probably would be besides where I've gotten to.
Yeah. Well, let's segue into where you've gotten to. Let's talk about blazing your own trail. Let's talk about how I remember Les Brown. I listened to Les Brown a lot. And I remember him talking about him being in sales and how he had to know his vitamin. And, I've heard you talk about no is actually an acronym. And I think you say it's an acronym for not over. Is that right?
It's next opportunity.
Next opportunity. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Explain that to us, please.
Yeah. So, every no gets us one step closer to a yes. And then so it's all about gamification. And so one of the things I learned early on in sales, and I've actually been coaching people on how to sell since I was 18 years old. I'm in almost 45. Next year I'll be 45 years old. So this is not a new thing to me, but I had to learn early on, because I remember when I was 14, I got my first job in sales for the Oregonian newspaper, and it sucked. I was going door to door, knocking on 100 doors, getting yelled at, cussed at. Hey, you woke up my baby. Cops called on you. I mean, you have the gamut hit you, and you got to be able to think on your feet. You got to be able to handle those no's. And I got some advice at even 14 that I didn't even understand until about 4 years later. But the advice that I got was the sale doesn't start until the customer says no. And if you really think about that, it's, people naturally tell us no. Like if you go into any department store in 2025 and the salesperson will say, "Do you need help?" What do we say? No. We're told our whole lives, say no to drugs, no, don't touch the stove, no, I'm not interested. And so it's almost ingrained in our mind that that's the first thing that we say. So what I had to understand is, what can I do? What can I control? And the only thing we can control is our attitude. The only thing we can control is how to react and respond. I've tried to control the weather, it doesn't work. I try to
Right.
control a lot of different things. They do not work. So we have to
Yeah.
control what we can control. And so what I figured out is, if I didn't want people to immediately say no, I had to figure out how to break that ice, because everybody has a wall up. Whether you're selling widgets or gidgets or homes or multi-million-dollar buildings, everybody has a wall up immediately. And our goal in sales is to figure out how to slowly break down or immediately break down that wall. So what I
Hmm.
figured out was, as I would go up to homes, I would try to look at my environment, and I would look and see, what could I talk about that would relate to this person before they could say a single word to me. Because I already knew that when I knocked on that door, they did not want me there. They did not want to see me. I was a stranger. I was just this random kid, and I already knew the outcome. And so I had to figure out, again, back to gamification, and I would look, okay, did they have a Portland Trailblazers flag outside? Hey, go Blazers, right? And so immediately, boom, I would break the ice. I would find something to relate to. If I saw a vehicle that I really liked, oh, I love your Mustang. What year is it? Right? If it was a hot day, I would say, "Hey, how you doing?" They'd say, "Great, how are you?" I'm like, "Man, I'm tired and thirsty." And they'd give me a glass of water, right? So it's about figuring out, what can I say or do that gets them in a different mindset, other than this is just this knucklehead kid knocking on my door. Because
Right.
to most people, that's what you are. You're just a knucklehead kid. What are you selling? You're selling something. We're always selling something. And so if I could get them to forget about that, and I could find a way to get my foot literally in the door, so to speak, and find a way to relate to people on a personal level, or add some type of humor into the mix, that is how I can get them to want to talk to me. Okay? Because again, the sale doesn't start till the customer says no. Well, if they say no immediately, a lot of times we're done. Okay, so how do we get them to not say no immediately? What can we do
Yeah.
to create a different environment that we're in? And if they would say no, I'd say, what are you saying no about? Like, again, things I would say, things that they would not expect to come out of my mouth. Like, they say, "Hey, no, I'm not interested." I'm like, "Not interested in what?" And they're like, "Oh, well, what are you up to then?" Because again, answer a question with a question, and that makes people have to actually take a moment to think, and it resets their brain. Because again, we're naturally wired to say no. And so if I can get them to think differently, or I can get something in there to interject them, then I actually buy myself time. And in sales, the more time you're in front of somebody, the closer you are to getting them to say yes to the thing that you're doing. And so if they would say, "Hey, no soliciting," I would say, "Oh, no, I thought that meant no smoking in Spanish." Again, I'd say something that was just funny that would get them to be like, "All right, what are you up to, kid? Like, what are you
Right.
really doing?" So again, sales is a lot about gamifying the situation, thinking on your feet. And then the other game that I would play, and I encourage everybody to do this, go find the no's, not the yeses. Because here's the thing, sales is a law of average game. 1 out of 10 people you talk to is probably going to say yes. So if you already know that, if you already know in your head that more people are going to say no than yes, go find the no's. Because if you're looking for the no's, the yeses are going to come. And so again, it's all about our mindset. It's about the way that we can flip the script. When you're a trailblazer, you do things a little unconventionally, and you
Hmm.
do things differently than the status quo, which means you're going to have to think outside the box. In fact, the
Right.
box for me doesn't exist. I'm a disruptor. I break rules all the time. Rules to me are suggestions. It's a suggestion. And my wife, it frustrates her to the T, because I'm
Yeah.
always getting free stuff places that we go. I get employee discounts and I'm not an employee there. And why? It's because I'm bold enough to ask and I'm wild enough to say something crazy that gets me stuff. But that's just the way that I've always lived my life. I don't, rules again are suggestions to me, and that's just
Suggestions. I love
the
that.
way that I live.
I love that. Talk to us a little more about the book that is going to be coming out, the life-changing power of adversity. And
Yes.
before we hopped on this podcast, I was thinking to myself, okay, I need to ask Jordan about his past, and I need to ask him about this book. And what came to mind is that my first coach that I hired to help me with speaking, she was like, you need an ETR when you get on stage. You need to have something that ETR stands for earn the right.
Yeah.
For people to listen. Like, who is this dude and why am I listening to him? And so I was wondering, okay, so what is Jordan's ETR for writing this book?
Yes.
And clearly we have covered some of it
Yeah,
already today.
absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I was hoping you could unpack a little bit more about, number one, why you chose to write the book, and maybe give us a couple more reasons of what is that ETR that you have earned the right to write a book entitled The Life-Changing Power of Adversity.
Well, adversity has changed my life. It's made me, and it's helped shape and mold me into the man that I am today. I would not be the same husband without adversity. I would not be the same father. I would not be the same coach. I would not be on amazing podcasts like yours if I haven't gone through something and got to the other side. And
Mhm.
that's the thing. You hit it. You touched on it a little earlier, but adversity does truly give us strength, and it enables us to see through a lens that most people will never see through, because most people look at adversity as a bad thing, and I look at it as there's power in it. Okay,
Mhm.
and the power comes from the lessons. And I wrote this quote
Yeah.
back in 2020, and it says, the struggle might be real, but the good news is that every struggle has a free gift called a lesson, and it's up to us to extract what those lessons are and then be able to leverage that lesson to get us further and to push us through. And
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I'm qualified is when I was 19 years old, I was in a truck. We were in Wyoming, and my buddy fell asleep at the wheel. There's four of us in this truck. We slid at 70 miles an hour. We flipped multiple times, and I shouldn't be here talking about this. I should have died. But I did not have my seatbelt on, and so my body was able to maneuver and shift. And if you look at the truck and how it was positioned, the area I should have been sitting in was completely crushed. And I ended up getting out of the truck. We searched for my buddy. We couldn't find him. He was about 25 yards from where the truck landed. He stood up like a zombie, fell over. He had to get life flighted to Casper, Wyoming, brain surgery. And I'm proud to say to this day, he's not only alive, he's not only thriving, but he has three beautiful kids and a wife and lives up in North Carolina. And at the moment, I did not even realize I was injured, Ian, until I started to smell this very strong smell of iron. And if any listeners have ever smelled a lot of blood, I literally was losing so much blood that they didn't think I would make it to the hospital. I had a 12-inch cut on my right leg that was a fist deep. My hand literally went in my leg. They had to rush me through emergency surgery. I ended up getting 52 surgical staples, rebuilt my right leg with laser surgery, 2 staples on my wrists, and some other scars and things like that. But I ended up making a full recovery after 6 months. And I remember waking up and looking to my left, and I saw my buddy Branderis, because one thing I didn't share with you is we were in a Walmart parking lot in Utah about 3 or 4 hours before this accident, and we almost got in a fist fight, Ian, about who was going to ride in the cool truck. And I won. And so when I woke up in that hospital bed and I looked to my left and I saw my friend, I looked him in the eyes and I said, I'm glad it was me. Because I realized in that moment, if he would have been in that truck and he would have had a seatbelt on, he would have died. And Branderis was a rule follower. I was a disruptor. I was a rule breaker. And so naturally, I was the guy that didn't have the seatbelt on. And so I just knew that that was supposed to be me. And I knew that if God put me through that, that he was going to get me to the other side. And when they told me that, hey, you could have lost your right leg, you may not be able to walk again, you better believe I was so motivated and fired up that I was going to walk. I was going to jump. I was a break dancer. I played sports all my life, and I was not going to be held down by that. And so I went from having a walker to a wheelchair to crutches, and within 6 months made a full recovery. And if I'm being completely honest, it was actually more painful getting the staples out than it was going through the surgery, because they did that countdown and I was out. Didn't even feel that part. But getting
Mhm.
surgical
Mhm.
staples pulled out of your leg 52 times, that was really, really painful. But I knew that if I could make it through the healing process of this accident, that I could make it through getting that stuff pulled out. And the lady was not nice. She was kind of mean, but she was just yank, yank. But that's what gives me permission to talk about the life-changing power of adversity, is because
Yeah.
adversity has helped shape and help mold me. You talked about the fact that we've got 6 beautiful kids, 4 boys, 2 girls, but it wasn't looking like that when I met my wife. Unfortunately, when she was younger, from the age of 5 to 10, she was raped, she was molested, terrible things happened to her, and the
Mhm.
doctors told her on numerous occasions she would not be able to conceive. And so when we met and she told me that story, I was devastated because I wanted to be a father. And I just had to, give it up to God. And a couple months into our relationship, she ended up getting pregnant. And so now I go from, wait a minute, like, first you can't have kids, and now we're getting excited that we can. And then the worst thing happened. She started to get pain in her side, and she goes to the doctor, and we lost the baby. And so now, as you can imagine, man, we go from hopeless to hope to hopeless again. And I
Yeah.
remember going to church with some friends, and again, I just had to go back and just give it to God and just say, hey, listen, if this was meant to be, then you'll find a way. And now you fast forward 21 years later, 4 boys, 2 girls, all healthy, not even a single allergy with any of our kids. And that's how good God is. And if you're listening to this and you're going through a hard time, or you have faced adversity and it's kept you down, I'm a living proof that you can make it through. And does it mean that there's going to be no more adversity in my life? Absolutely not. I just went through it this morning. It's going to come, it's going to be early, and it's going to be often. In fact, when you're up to good, you're going to be faced with more adversity. But God is not going to put you through something that you can't handle.
There it is. Man, Jordan, thank you for just keeping it real, man, and just laying it out there and how it is. Because I think people need to hear more of it in that type of language, and not, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, woo woo terms,
Yeah,
but just the simple fact that, like, yes, adversity sucks, but sometimes we have to embrace the suck.
that's it.
And like you said, it's all about the lesson. That's the gift of the adversity,
Yep.
and learning that when you do make it through the other side, which you will, that you're going to be stronger for it.
100%. It's not what happens to you, folks. It's what happens for you. And it's not
Yes.
for you, it's for other people to get inspiration. Because there's going to be someone that hears the sound of my voice and says, wow, now I know I can make it. Now I know I can push through, insert whatever the challenge is. Now I
Mhm.
know that if this knucklehead can do it, I can surely do it. Because, like I said before, there's nothing special about me. The only difference is that if I do get the chance to wake up, you better believe I'm going full in that day. There's no rules, baby. It's only suggestions, and I'm gonna keep blazing
Right.
my trail until I'm taken from this planet. I mean, that's my mission, and that's what I love when I teach and when I coach and when I train people, because some people get a hangnail and they feel like their life's over, and I'm like, listen, your life is not over. There's going to be
Right.
harder things that you go through. There's going to be trials, there's going to be tribulations. That's the guarantee. It's going to happen, and it's all about how do we react and how do we respond.
Yeah. So true. So true. Jordan, I want to thank you so much for joining us today,
My
and
pleasure.
I also want to make sure that our listeners and our viewers know where to find out more about you, more about your coaching services, more about your speaking, more about when your book is going to drop. So, where can we find out more about Jordan Mendoza?
Yeah, so probably the easiest 2 places to find me. The podcast is super easy. Just go to Google and type in BYOT Pod, BYOTPOD, and we've got all the real estate there. You'll find the podcast. You'll find all my social handles: Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook. That's one of the things I've done a great job at over the years, is just building organic audiences across all social media channels. And that's what I teach and coach. So if you're looking to grow your business, online and you don't know how to do it, reach out. I'd love to help. I do group coaching every Friday at 1:00 Eastern time. I give anybody 7 days access just to come see if I'm the right guy to coach you. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. I don't claim that I can help everybody, but if you're willing and you're open to put in the reps, then I know I can help you succeed. And as far as speaking, I travel the world and speak. Like I said, I have a company out in Belgium as well, so I'm in Europe actually in about 4 weeks, headed out there. We're getting ready to launch a second product. And then also, as far as the book's concerned, really it's end of May, early June. I'm just about to get my final edits to the editing team, and I think it's going to take about 2 weeks for them to get them done, and then it would be available on Amazon. It's actually going to be distributed at 40,000 locations worldwide, Barnes & Noble, universities, airports, all over the place. You'll be able to find it. And I'm so honored that our common connection, Amberly, she's actually writing the foreword for the book.
Nice.
Her and I have been, great friends for about 4.5 years. And if anyone knows about adversity, it's her. And she knows that I also know about it. And so it's just an honor to have her contribute to that, especially our relationship. And we're kindred spirits in a lot of the things that we've experienced. So honored that she was able to connect us. Actually, you don't remember me from last year, I don't believe, but I was 71 pounds heavier at the last event. I met you then. And then I met you again at this other event.
Yeah.
And I'm just honored that we were able to connect. And I appreciate all the things that you're doing. I got to meet your amazing wife, and so cool to be able to kind of put a face to a name and then be here speaking with your amazing audience today.
Yeah, well, we thank you so much. And just so everybody knows, I did remember Jordan, because after I met you last year, you had sent me a DM saying, let's hook up or connect. If I can help in any way, let me know. And I thought that, man, this guy is legit, because you didn't know me from Adam, but you just knew me because we knew.
Okay, you remembered
Lee,
then. I appreciate that you remembered me, because I remembered you for sure.
You and I was touched by that you just sent me a message without even really knowing who I was or what I was about. But you're like, if I can help you out in any way, I thought, man, this guy's pretty cool and legit. So I'm glad we did get.
I'm glad we stayed in touch and got to at least have some more FaceTime at the event. Actually, I got a picture Tom took of me and you and Tim, so I'll text that over to you.
Oh, nice.
So you've got that. We get that posted on the socials as well. So
cool. I appreciate that. All right. Well, Jordan, again, I know that you are a super busy guy, so we will wrap it up here. Thank you so much again for dropping in and sharing all of your pearls of wisdom, and because you are truly a testament to positive persistence. And that's what this show is all about. And as we always wrap it up, fam, we say that mindset is everything. And we'll see you next time.
Well, one thing before we close is I just wanted to say you do a great job as a host. And I always like to honor any host that brings me on, that takes the time to listen to my antics for 53.5 minutes. You're a true gentleman and a scholar. So keep up the great work and keep doing what you're doing, and don't give up.
Jordan, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
All right, family, that is a wrap for this episode. We will see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in and being part of the Positive Persistence family. We're having a great time creating this content, and we truly hope it inspires you to embrace positivity and persistence in your own journey. If this podcast episode inspired you or entertained you, scroll down, hit those stars, and leave a comment or two. Your 5-star reviews and shares encourage us and help us grow the show. So until next time, stay positive, stay persistent, and remember, mindset is everything.